Welcome to Fortes Media. I am Kaide Bentley, the president and founder of the organization, and I wanted to take this time to address certain matters which was presented to me from my staff, ironically enough. And I'm honored because sometimes I get so consumed with operations that I forget to send a message out to all of our supporters, which I am truly grateful for. We all are. So I'm going to talk on something real quick. I don't want it to be too long-winded. Those of you who know me know I can be that. There was a big event that took place, I would say, over the past couple of weeks, and it had to do with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. This affected a lot of people to the extent there were walkouts, there were boycotts, and whatever your viewpoint on that, it is what it is. So I want to take this time to address it from the standpoint of how it affects the teen population, particularly inner city youth. And inner city youth is the population that my organization, 4Ts, Teaching Teens to Think, directly works with and tries to help, support, encourage, and empower. Okay. So without any further delay, let me get into it. The removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs from educational institutions has been a topic of considerable debate. For those who are wondering about the DEI program, I took the liberty of giving some context and some background on it. So in September of 1965, President Lyndon Johnson issued an executive order 11-246, which required government employers to hire without regard to race, religion, and national origin, and to take affirmative action to ensure that applicants are employed and that employees are treated during employment without regard to race. Then in 1970, the concepts that now comprise DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, were primarily framed under the umbrella of affirmative action and integration, with a focus on addressing historical inequalities and ensuring equal opportunities in the workplace and society. So there's your historical context of how DEI started. And I want to emphasize, why would this initiative even have to be introduced if these inequalities, judgments, unconscious biases, a host of all these descriptions you want to give, didn't exist in the first place? Okay, so let that resonate, sink in, process, whatever you have to do. Now we come to today, an administration in office now, with the removal of the DEI programs, specifically from the educational institutions, which is the dynamic or the demographic that my organization deals with, and how it can have several adverse effects on the teenage population. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that I stick with the data, facts, and statistics, removing my emotions from this, because I was told by my colleagues and my staff I get too emotional and passionate about this. So I like to keep it factually based. My assistant actually told me about that as well. Keep it factual, Mr. K. Keep it factual. So this is what I'm going to do. All right. Now let's go through these points. Here are some key factors as I stated before, the removal of the DEI programs and its adverse effects on the teenage population. 1, increased discrimination and bias. I'll say that again. Increased discrimination and bias, as if that didn't already exist. DEI programs are designed to reduce discrimination and promote inclusivity. Without these initiatives, there's a heightened risk of discriminatory behaviors and biases resurfacing, leading to a less supportive environment for minority students or inner city students. That's factor one. Factor two, deterioration of mental health. The absence of DEI efforts can negatively impact the mental well-being of underrepresented and minority students. This will bring about feelings of isolation and marginalization, may increase, contributing to stress and anxiety, which we've seen and heard in some aspect, the increase of suicide rates of students. And this is just in relation to social media, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, right? So this young demographic is already dealing with peer pressure and things of that nature. Now taking what was a minimal support system at best, taking these initiatives, DEI initiatives, out of that in regards to, well, let me fall back. Stress and anxiety. Next, 3, reduce academic support. DEI initiatives often provide essential resources and support systems that aid in the academic success of all students. Eliminating these programs can lead to decreased retention and graduation rates among underrepresented groups. I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to take my emotions out of it. Point 4, limited preparation for diverse environments. Exposure to diverse perspectives during formative years prepares students for future professional and social settings. The removal of DEI programs may hinder students' readiness to navigate and contribute effectively in diverse workplaces and communities. We're going to get into it in the subsequent points that I'm going to address. But with the lack of, I'm just touching on it, just surface, and again, I'm going to stick with the points, but with the lack of color teachers, professionals, administrators, it seriously diminishes the student's ability to be able to function in diverse populations post-education, particularly after high school when these inner city youth are pursuing higher education in college. Point 5, potential legal and economic consequences. The dismantling of DEI programs can lead to legal challenges and may negatively affect the institution's reputation, potentially influencing funding and economic support. We've seen that already over the past few weeks with the boycotts of a particular store called Target. Anyway, continuing on, these are just a few points that I brought up in regards to the detrimental or negative effects of the removal of these DEI programs. In summary, eliminating DEI programs from educational settings can lead to increased discrimination, mental health challenges, reduced academic support, inadequate preparation for diverse environments, and potential legal and economic repercussions, all of which adversely affect the teenage population. Now, this may have to be a part 2. I may have to break it down into part 2 because I want it short enough for consumption. So in my effort to do that, let me move on. So I already spoke about the adverse effects of the removal of DEI programs, but I'm looking at it from both perspectives. I'm going to try and look at it and see, okay, well, what are the proponents of the removal of the DEI programs? What are the people saying who are in favor of these programs? Just hear some points on that. So in contrast, the proponents of this action argue that it can lead to certain benefits for teenage population, including these points. 1, emphasis on merit-based systems, meaning critics of DEI programs contend that such initiatives, and these are critics for the program, make sure it's clear, critics for the removal, for the removal of the program contend that such initiatives may inadvertently prioritize factors like race or gender over individual merit. By removing DEI programs, they argue that admissions and opportunities can focus more on academic achievements and qualifications, potentially fostering a culture where students are recognized solely for their personal accomplishments. Moving on. Point 2, I want you to, it's a struggle for me, y'all, but I'm going to do my best. I want you to emphasize what's said. May inadvertently prioritize, not deliberately, inadvertently. Keyword, inadvertently. Not deliberately, inadvertently. May inadvertently. When you put those two words, anyway, I'm going to go on. Part 2, point 2, reduction of perceived divisiveness. Some believe that DEI programs can accentuate differences among students, leading to feelings of division, like they didn't already exist before, which is why the affirmative action program was started in 1965, because those situations and behaviors and biases already existed. But I digress. Eliminating these programs might promote a more unified student body by treating all students uniformly without emphasizing distinctions based on race, gender, and other characteristics. Sometimes, y'all, the ignorance of this stuff is sometimes baffles me. Like we don't already know. All right, moving on. Point 3, simplification of administrative processes. Maintaining DEI programs often requires significant administrative resources and funding. Removing these initiatives, such as DEI initiatives, could streamline operations and reallocate resources to other areas that directly impact educational outcomes, such as curriculum development or infrastructure improvements. Keep in mind, when I asked for proponents to the removal of the DEI programs, I got 3 points. When I asked for the negative adverse effects of the removal of the DEI proponents, I got 5 points. In closing, in regards to the proponents of the removal of the DEI program, it's essential to recognize that these perspectives are subject to ongoing debate, and the actual impact of removing DEI programs can vary based on individual experiences and institutional contexts. Individual experiences of who? And the fact that this is subject to ongoing debate when we have historical context already. Why is this even a thing? Anyway, I'm moving on. So, those are that I gave the adverse, the people who are in opposition to the removal of the DEI program and its adverse effects on the teenage population, and I also gave proponents. So recognize that these perspectives are subject to ongoing debate, and the actual impact of removing DEI programs can be based on individual experiences and institutional context, right? And then we go into what I meant before, might promote a more unified body, right? The reduction of perceived divisiveness. Okay, some believe that DEI programs can accentuate differences among students, leading to feelings of division. Right? This is with the DEI initiatives. Some believe that it could accentuate. I want you to hear this. it could accentuate the differences among students, leading to feelings of division. So the DEI program initiatives could increase the division among students, various cultures, backgrounds. That's what they're saying. Okay. All right. Keep that in mind. But eliminating the DEI programs could have an adverse effect by it could unify. Okay. So let's look at some stats, facts, and statistics on this. Okay. Let's look at some data. Okay. Let's look at some historical data. Let's look at some facts. I have to emphasize that because I want to make sure that what I'm reading right now is not misperceived as my own personal opinion. This is from the book, The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America. And that black could go into I don't want to go into the whole political, but black in America, any person who is of minority descent. I hate to use that term as well, right? Disadvantaged population, inner city youth. Let's keep it that way so everyone don't get caught up on the semantics. Again, the book is The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America, and is written by Sean D. Rochester, someone who's on point with his information. This is data that I'm going to be providing you, stats. Here we go. Let's go into it. And this will probably, welcome to part 2 of the DEI perspective from me. Okay. On page 62 of this book, Black Tax, Separate but Equal Education, from 1896 to 1954. Right? That's where this chapter starts on page 62. If you turn to page 63, when you turn to page 63, is going to talk about the separate but equal doctrine established by the Supreme Court in 1896, which stated that separate but equal facilities for Black and white Americans did not violate the equal protection under the law provision in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, not only upheld racial segregation, but also proved to be the perfect vehicle for the planter class and the white farmers to legally divert funding away from Black students to white students. I'm just going to read this through. I'm not going to add any of mine. This is the last time I'm going to add my interjection. Maybe. This diverting of resources was so pervasive that by 1900, there were only about 27,000 Black teachers for the 2.5 million Black children ages 5 to 18 in the former 16 slave states. And of the 2.1 Black children age 5 to 14, only 36% were attending school. Between 1900 and 1920, despite significant tax increases to build schools in the South, virtually none of that money was used for Black schools. Separate but equal. Here's a quote from the book that I give my reply. I'm going to read the quote. This is on page 65. The fundamental problem with the idea of separate but equal was that it was impossible to make facilities equal in a culture and society that was based on almost 400 years of pervasive, coercive, and systematic inequality and inequity. My response, the fundamental problem with the idea of removing DEI programs, similar to the affirmative action program, is that it is impossible to make education equal in a culture and society that was based on almost 400 years of pervasive, coercive, and systematic inequality and inequity. On page 66, same book, if all other discrimination in society, politics, and the labor market stayed the same, the power of an equal education could have reduced the wage gap by up to 50% if Black students were given equal resources and opportunities. On page 67, separate but equal officially lasted from 1896 to 1954, when it was overturned by the Brown versus Board of Education decision. There was a dramatic reduction in the number of Black teachers at all levels. In 1954, about 82,000 Black teachers were responsible for teaching 2 million Black children and represented approximately 50% of the Black professional class. In the decade following the Brown decision, almost 40,000 Black teachers and administrators in 17 southern and border states lost their jobs. Black teachers were eliminated and ultimately replaced with a pipeline of white teachers. Let me add 2 points to this. Number one, over the past few months and years, there's been an outcry of needing more Black teachers in the school system, in addition to more Black male teachers in the school system. I wonder why that is. I guess we now know why. The other thing, I'm not advocating, it's not a black and white issue per se. I'm going to be real careful how I say this. And again, I apologize for interjecting. I just wanted to read the facts, but I wanted to give some context as well. I'm not against white teachers, but you're going to see why this is disadvantageous for a demographic of students going to school to have one culture dominated or representing and teaching a class of students that don't reflect them. So this ain't a black and white issue. I wish it didn't even come up, but it is a reality that we have to face. So don't come at me with no being racist and all this bigotry and all this other. I'm just stating the facts on what we can see and what's going on with our education system today and how there are programs and initiatives being removed that's designed to help us get through this. Moving on. In Arkansas, virtually no black educators were hired in desegregated districts in the decade between 1958 to 1968. Virtually no black educators were hired during this time frame. In Texas, 5,000 substandard white teachers were employed instead, while certified black teachers were told to go into other lines of work. And this is reported by Carol Karpinski, an independent researcher and New York City educator. During that time, black teachers received little help from unions. And from Helen Pate Bain, the National Education Association's president from 1970 to 1971, the American Teachers Association, an all-black union, was too weak. And the larger NEA was controlled by prejudiced people. In the mid-1950s, black principals were in a far worse position. Researchers estimate that 90% of black principals lost their jobs across 11 southern states. In North Carolina, for example, the number of black principals decreased from 620, get this, from 620 to 40 in the 4-year period between 1967 to 1971, from 620 to 40 in a 4-year time period. Mildred Hudson, Chief Executive Officer of Education Management Company recruiting new teachers, observed that between 1975 to 1985, the number of Black students majoring in education dropped by 66%. By year 2000, 84% of the nation's teachers were white, while only 61% of students were white. And 38% of public schools did not have a single teacher of color. Blacks made up about 18% of public school students, but fewer than 8% of teachers, and Black males represented less than 2% of all teachers and administrators in the U.S. education system. That's less than 2%. This dramatic reduction in Black teachers led to an increase in Black children being taught. Remember, we were talking about the 82% of white teachers. I'm going to read that and start that sentence again. 82% of white teachers. This dramatic reduction in Black teachers led to an increase of Black children being taught by white teachers who had both conscious and unconscious bias against them. Just by those, again, another interjection. I'll do my best to finalize it. Just by those who view this video, check yourself. You might say, take this offensive. I might have rubbed you the wrong way with this, right? But what I'm saying right now, right? It makes you feel uncomfortable. Why? It's the truth. It's not my opinion. It's not my perspective. It's the truth. Why do you feel a certain kind of way based on the truth? You're upset with me now calling it out, putting it on the forefront, putting the mirror up. That could be the only thing because it's not my perspective. These are facts. Again, I'm going to go back to it. The dramatic reduction in Black teachers led to an increase of Black children being taught by white teachers who had both conscious and subconscious bias against them. That's probably why how you feel about this is subconsciously bothering. Again, I don't mean to make this personal. I'm just trying to get us to look at ourselves, do a self-evaluation so we can correct this mess. Consider the results of several studies discussed in Teacher Education Quarterly in the winter of 2002. Here's the book, Black Tax. Here's the study. Reading it, study. Not my perspective, not my opinion. This is a study. Okay, let me move on. Let me stop. I'm passionate about this, y'all. So don't take it offensive. I'm passionate about it. It bothers me. It bothers me. The inequality, the injustice, the unfairness. It bothers me by a population of young people who basically did not ask to come here. They were put here. And they're put in an education system that's judging them harshly and unfairly just because of what? Okay. In this quarterly, the Teacher Education Quarterly, in the winter of 2002, it reads, Gottlieb in 1964 discovered wide disparities in the use of adjectives to describe the actions of Black students by a set of Black and white teachers, with the positive adjectives attributed to Black teachers. A questionnaire designed by Griffin in London in 1979 revealed a majority of Black teachers polled believed their students possessed adequate or better ability for school success. White teachers in the same study viewed a majority of Black students below minimum levels of ability for achievement. Finally, Beatty and Hansel in 1981 discovered Black teachers held substantially higher expectations for college success for Black students than white teachers did. From 1865 to 1955, 6 generations of Black children experienced severe underfunding in the U.S. education system, which effectively crippled their human capital development and reduced their earning capacity by 50%. So the proponents, going back to the proponents of those who agree that the removal of the DEI initiatives could be beneficial, these proponents said that eliminating these programs might promote a more unified student body by treating all students uniformly without emphasizing distinction based on race, gender, and other characteristics. And I just read a report from you in the Black Tax, based on stats and not opinions, of the teachers' perspectives of Black students, of the Black teachers' perspectives of Black students compared to the white teachers' perspectives of Black children. Let that settle in. Moving on. After the Brown versus Board of Education decision, Black students transitioned to a system that had more funding, but eliminated tens of thousands of Black teachers and increased their exposure to teachers with negative biases and decreased expectations, which the DEI program initiative was supposed to help counteract that. This was a net loss to the Black community because Black teachers, principals, and administrators were replaced with white teachers, principals, and administrators. And I want to emphasize Black for a reason, because I don't want people saying, oh, Black lives matter, all lives matter, that whole nonsense. Oh, what about, because we have a problem now, not to get too personal, with the whole, what do you call it? The government deporting back Hispanics and Puerto Ricans, and they're talking about how come Blacks aren't coming to their rescue, and then you got this division among Hispanics and Blacks. Never was before. We always work together, but when the tables are turned, and I'm not going to go into it, I don't want to get into a political debate, and I'm sorry for interjecting so much. I'm going to close this out. We talk about the election and we talk about who voted for who. It stands out. It's just factual. Let's not play these games. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to read this last part again and move on. After the Brown versus Board of Education decision, Black students transitioned to a system that had more funding, but eliminated tens of thousands of Black teachers and increased their exposure to teachers with negative biases and decreased expectations that we read in the report in the Teacher Education Quarterly in the winter of 2002. This, in essence, diverted tens of billions of dollars of incremental funding away from the Black community via firing Black teachers and shifted it to the white community via the hiring of white teachers. As I close out, and I thank you for being patient if you stayed this long to listen to the whole thing. Yeah. It ain't easy. It's tough. It's not sexy. It's not entertaining. It's not funny. It's reality. And it came from data, facts, and statistics, not my opinion. So I was inspired and pretty much suggested to do this, to talk about this issue as it relates to the teenage demographic, particularly inner city youth, because it's a issue. It's a hot topic, and I will be doing more of these. I will be addressing more of these issues as it relates to the inner city demographic of teenage population, which is what my organization is. So I thank you for tuning in, listening. I hope you learned something. And again, okay, what do you do with this information? Was it just me dumping this on you? No. What it was is for you to play an active role in your area of influence, whether it's related to people you know, the people you work with, not jeopardizing your job. I'm not suggesting that. All I'm saying is we as individuals realize and see the injustices that are going on out there and know that it's not right and know that something needs to be done. So I'm not saying, or I'm not suggesting that you run for office, run to be president, that you stand on picket lines, that you do. All I'm asking you to do is find it within your realm of strength, your realm of whatever your skill set is, to incorporate this into your skill set. Whether it's, if you have access to young people, educate them on this, encourage them, motivate them, share with them your experiences, share with them the strategies that you use to succeed despite the challenges and injustices that you face out there. If you're an educator, if you're a professional, if you go to career seminars or career days, because it's coming up in the next few months, the career days at the school, do your part in educating these young people, preparing them, counteracting the devices that already exist out here with the removal of these programs that are designed to help them. In your own way, be a support system for them. Young people that gravitate to you, listen to you, are influenced by you. That's what I'm hoping that what I shared with you and the other topics that I share with you motivate you and inspire you to do. That's all it is. Not lose your job, not fall out with family, none of that. But in whatever little way you can contribute to counteracting these ill-informed, biased legislation or removal of legislation, whatever you can do to contribute to that, do that. That's it. Thank you so much again for listening. I appreciate you, and stay tuned for my next commentary on circumstances, initiatives, current events, what have you, that are affecting our young population, particularly inner city youth. Take care. And thanks for visiting 4T's Media.